Hi, I'm Dr. Pompa, and welcome to the Go Beyond Summit. Look, I promise you, in this video, you are going to learn and hear things you've never heard or learned before in your life. I promise you that. You're going to learn why people really can't lose weight today, despite what they eat, despite how much they exercise. And look, you're going to learn really how to go beyond in your fitness, even at my age, at age 51, through something I love to call called hormone optimization. You're also going to learn why so many people today don't feel well, despite what they're doing. I mean, despite their dietary changes and all the supplements and different things, and of course, all the medications they're taking. You know, all this really is explained at the cell. Matter of fact, I have this board behind me because I'm going to show you this, okay? But first, you're also going to learn a little bit about who I am and how I got into this. I already told you I'm Dr. Pompa, but you know, I became very popular in the United States and really on the internet. I have a big presence on YouTube because of what I teach, my cellular detox and my cellular healing. And that applies to these topics that I told you you're going to learn about. So how did I get into this? I didn't wake up one day and said, boy, I have a great idea. I am going to figure out how the cell can get people well. And matter of fact, that's my mantra. You have to fix the cell to get well. But I didn't say I'm just going to teach about these things. I was actually a functioning chiropractor at the time, and I had a very big practice. I had 2 young children at the time, 2 little boys. Life was going very well. But then I got very sick, and that's really what put me on this mission. So I have a mantra as well, from pain to purpose. Everything that I teach now, and I have the privilege of educating now the public and the masses via YouTube and on the internet. But also I've trained hundreds of doctors, like I said, around the country to really do what I teach. But this applies to you. It really does. It's a very, very important topic because I really believe today to perform at a level beyond most, to go beyond, even in your health or your performance, it really is a cellular issue. So you're going to learn that. Look, my story goes like this. I was at probably the best time in life as you could be. 2 young babies, great marriage, a busy, thriving practice helping people, and all of a sudden I become very fatigued. And I have to tell you, I was in the best shape of my life, honestly, at that time. I was racing, I was a cyclist racing my bike at the highest level that I could possibly go to with the time that I had. I was racing at the expert level, and everything was great. And then all of a sudden, fatigue hit. I thought, overtraining, like most of you would think. So I backed off, went back at it, fatigue got worse. Took more time off, went back at it, headaches. All of a sudden, anxiety, all of a sudden, insomnia. Then it started going into food allergies, intolerances, everything I ate, bloating, all types of bizarre symptoms. Matter of fact, I could not adapt to any stress at all. So imagine that with 2 young children in the house, screaming kids, forget it. Matter of fact, I couldn't even go to movies. I remember one time I was watching, and I was from Pittsburgh, so you're talking about a Pittsburgh Steeler fan here. I was watching a football game, all excited for the playoffs. I couldn't watch it. It was too much excitement. I wasn't adapting. So imagine, life as I know it came to a screeching halt. Obviously, my adrenals weren't functioning well. I couldn't adapt to any stress at all. I couldn't even handle sounds, let alone screaming kids. My thyroid not working at all, although my blood work was normal. You're going to learn why that is too. But my hair was thinning and falling out. All of this, I realized, look, I tried to address my thyroid, my adrenal glands. Certain things would get better, but some things would actually get worse. I realized the problem was here. It was my pituitary hypothalamus. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that controls your adrenal glands and your thyroid and most of your endocrine system, your hormone system. So basically, once I realized that, then I was thinking, okay, what's wrong with it, right? I really couldn't figure it out. I was searching the internet like most people do, right? Except I had the ability to read literature and understand it and remember it, although I did have massive brain fog at this time. And by the way, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, oftentimes with debilitating anxiety, but sometimes not. So that's when I would do a lot of the research. But I found something called Mad Hatter's disease. You've probably heard the saying, you're mad as a hatter. Well, I was. Trust me, I was. And I said, this is me. So I have a dog and he's going to bark, and you're just going to have to deal with that because he has to stay in this room with me. He's my little follower. But anyways, so I looked at the symptoms. I said, this is me. So I went down. These people with Mad Hatter's disease were mercury poisoned. They were making felt hats using mercury. And the mercury was getting into their system, and they became known as Mad as a Hatter. So went and got a blood test for mercury. Negative. It wasn't for another year. I made friends with a very bright endocrinologist who said to me one day, Dan, I think you have mercury poisoning. Your body temperatures are too low. You have all these symptoms. I said, yeah, I thought the exact same thing. Well, I went and got a blood test. He said, wrong test. Do this one. That's for acute. I think you have chronic. So I did it. I did that test. Sure enough, off the chart. I asked what you would have asked. How did I get that? What do you think? He said, do you have any dental work done around the time this happened? I said, yeah, I did. Bottom line was I had 2 fillings pulled out, or drilled out, I should say, and the mercury vapored and sent my bucket overflowing. Looking back, I had some major mercury exposures. My dad used something called methylate on me, mercury. I wore contact lenses through the 80s, early 90s, which that mercury goes right up into the hypothalamus pituitary. It was actually the #1 adult source at that time. Of course, like most of you, I ate fish, things like that. Multiple exposures to mercury, only to send my bucket overflowing when I got the 2 amalgams out. Needless to say, I figured out how to get the rest out correctly and safely, and then years of learning how to detox to get it out of my brain. When you look at amalgams, studies show most of that mercury vapor comes off the amalgams and goes right into the hypothalamus pituitary, exactly where I knew the problem was. So I figured out how to get it out of the pituitary, out of the cells of my body. I've become known for my cellular detox and cellular healing. Real detox, folks, has to occur at the cellular level. Most detox today is too downstream to really address these problems of why people don't feel well, why their cells aren't working well, why we're not recovering from our exercise, and recovery is everything with performance, right? Why we have a world of dysregulated hormones today, people not feeling well, people can't lose weight. It's all a cellular problem, driven mostly by toxins like heavy metals, biotoxins from things like mold, these big types of toxins. They're not average toxins that most people can't get rid of because even if they are detoxing, they're doing detox way downstream. Look, I love colon cleanses. I think that there's benefit there. Liver cleanse, benefit. The 10-day cleanse, well, maybe not all of them, maybe very little benefit. But I think we're all familiar with those terms, those types of detox, right? This cleanse, that cleanse, 4-day cleanse. Look, too far downstream, even if there's benefits. You have to get to the cell. True detox is at the cell. Matter of fact, I coined a term called true cellular detox, meaning this is the key. Look, when you talk to scientists today, they get it. The fact that real detox is a cellular issue. It really is. What's happening today is we're being bombarded by so many different toxins like no time ever in the history of man, that the cells are malfunctioning. They're losing their ability to get rid of toxins. Once we upregulate cell function and get them functioning normally, now we can get somewhere. Here's the other problem. When your cells stop getting rid of toxins, what happens then is it starts to accumulate things in the cell, not getting rid of them. Even when your cell makes energy, it's making a toxin. It's like burning wood in this room. If I don't have a chimney, then guess what? I will die and everyone in the room, right? It's not the flames, it's the smoke. But if I have a chimney and get rid of the toxins, no problem. When you make energy, whether it's burning a fire or energy in your cell that you need just to think normal and be normal throughout your day, you're making waste. But when cell function decreases because of outside toxins, now it can't even get rid of what the toxins it makes. Once we get that moving, that cell doing what it needs to do, now you can deal with everyday toxins. Real detox has to occur at the cell. All right, that's a little lesson there. But look, the key is, this is how we can change our function with the brain fog, the energy, the recovery from exercise, in optimizing our hormones. All right, I have a board behind me here because I'm going to teach you a little lesson that I know is going to transform your life. You have to get well, you have to fix the cell. But we also, if we want to increase our performance and go beyond in anything, in our health or performance, we have to understand what's happening here. That's a cell, and this is the epidemic of all the toxins that we're being exposed to. This is what it's affecting. All right, I mentioned the thyroid. I can show you just with one hormone example what's happening, but remember now, I could use testosterone, estrogen, any hormone that we need to feel good and have normal performance, even with the way our brain works, as an example. But let's start with one. Thyroid hormone. The active hormone is known as T3. Okay, that's the one that actually gets into your cell and makes you feel good. The problem is T3 actually starts with a stored hormone called T4, and then it has to be converted to the active hormone T3 that gets in the cell. Any hormone, this is important, any hormone has to attach to a receptor on the cell to get its message in the cell. And then it gets its message in here, in the nucleus, in the DNA. And then that DNA will then produce certain proteins that produce certain other hormones, chemicals, to make us feel normal and good. So this all occurs because the hormone combines and speaks to the cell via the receptor. Okay, follow this. What if these receptors were blunted? What if someone covered your ears, you couldn't hear me speak, the message is not going to get through? This is called inflammation. We've all heard of it. Inflammation, you've heard, is the cause of diabetes, thyroid conditions, even cancer. I can tell you even why people can't lose weight, and this is a great example of that. Because inflammation really is, when they're talking about inflammation that causes disease, they're talking about inflammation of every cell in your body. So now you don't get good stuff in the cell that you need to feel good. You're definitely not going to get the toxins out. But it also, this inflammation of the cell membrane, which is vital of everything that passes in and out, is also where these receptors to your hormones are. So imagine that is covering your ears. So now your hormones aren't communicating. Look, this is important. Right now it's in vogue to give hormones, whether it's thyroid hormone, whatever it is, estrogen, testosterone. But the key is not giving more hormones. And I'm going to give you an example of that. The key is getting the cells to hear the hormones. Now, let me give you an example. If you have kids, this will work. I'll give you those who don't have kids, I'll give you an example. If you start shouting at your kids, in the beginning it works. So therefore, in the beginning when we start taking hormones, it works. We feel better. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But then in the end, our kids start hearing us less and less, just like our cells. They become more deaf and deaf to the message or the hormone. So do our kids. If you don't have kids, how about this? Your car runs out of gas. Is it going to help if you dump the gas on the outside of the car? No, you can dump more and more gas. You have to get the gas inside the car. So you have to get the message of the hormone inside the cell. So therefore, if the cell is inflamed, then we can't get that message in. Okay, ask yourself one question. What is the cause of inflammation? Yes, elevated glucose. Yes, certain bad fats. Okay, the number one cause is toxins. Toxins make their way to this membrane and they drive inflammation. They even bind right up to those receptors and block them. But the inflammation it drives can also block the communication of the hormones to the cell. And now we're not making all that good stuff. All right, there's one more problem. What if you don't convert this hormone to this hormone? By the way, most of that conversion happens in the liver. So if the liver is toxic, you're not going to make that conversion between T4 and T3. So now you're stuck with an inactive hormone. I know my dog's barking, but someone hopefully will let this dog out of the room, or I'll have to get off this camera and let him out of the room. So if you don't make that conversion, which can also be a toxic issue, cellular detox, then you're not getting an active form made. Oh, and by the way, this is a reason why your blood work can look normal and you still not feel well. Because your brain thinks you have normal hormone levels, but you're not getting into the cell or it's not converting. So toxins can play a role here. Toxins can play a role at the cell. That's why people don't feel well. Now look, I could do the same thing with a hormone called leptin. That's a hormone that tells your brain to burn fat and to stop eating. So imagine if the cells in your brain, which are in the hypothalamus, are blunted from this hormone, leptin. Now you're not going to get the message to be a fat burner and burn fat for energy. Insulin, that's another fat hormone. Insulin, when in an elevation, will store fat. So again, we know insulin very well. Type 2 diabetes, plenty of insulin, too much, but they're not getting the glucose in the cell, right? That's a problem. That's type 2 diabetes. So it's called what? Hormone resistance, right? So that's what the insulin hormone is. I could talk about estrogen. I could talk about testosterone. The bottom line is this. It's not about taking more hormones. Sometimes it's necessary. It's about getting the cell to hear it. Really, then we have to ask the question, what's driving this problem? Number one reason, I'm not saying it's the sole reason, but the number one reason is toxins. So, detox, you have to go here. I have taught something to doctors and the public caught on in many videos. I taught something called my 5 R's. My 5 R's, I'm going to draw a cell up here. My 5 R's became a roadmap of how you fix the cell. And really, it's just what we need to do to fix this cell and get the cell working. Once we do that, the toxins will start moving from the cell. Well, let me even be more artistic. That's a liver. That's a bad liver. I'm going to draw a gut down here. That's, believe it or not, your intestines. Okay, so there's your intestines, there's your liver, and if I even dare to try to draw some kidneys, there they are. I draw these because these are downstream detox pathways. So we want to get toxins from the cell moving out, down, and all the way out of the body. Once we get this cell functioning, it will start moving toxins to these other organs, the liver, the gut, from the liver down through the gut and out of the body. That's if it's all working well, right? So what if toxins get stopped up in the liver? Well, then we want to keep them moving out of the liver into the intestines. There's something called bind that we use as practitioners. It sits in the gut as a catcher's mitt. So when we bring the toxins from the cell through the liver out here, we grab the toxins so they move all the way out of the body from the intestines. Why? Because they can be reabsorbed back into the system, which is not good. This is a system that I developed over the years dealing with very, very sick people. And what it really does is we start with the cell. We open up these downstream detox pathways to make sure these toxins go out of the body. There's one more little glitch. We use bind down here to make sure we don't reabsorb them from our gut and to protect our gut to make sure they're moving out of the body. But once we get cellular function going again, we need a true binder. Cytodetox is, I can't say it's brand new, but it's a breakthrough in science in the last 2 years. That is a true binder that grabs onto a toxin in a cage with an ion bond that doesn't let go. And why is that important? Because when you're dealing with things like heavy metals, like I did, you need something strong enough bond that when you move these toxins out, it will escort the toxins all the way out. Otherwise, you get redistribution. And if I dare to draw just one more thing with my amazing artistic ability, actually that's not that bad. That was a head right there, and that's a person, and that's a neck. But here's what I really want to draw, and that's the brain. When we're doing detox of any sort, redistribution of toxins can go back into the body, and oftentimes they end up back into the brain. How I got my life back really was upregulating cell function and then going after it here in the deep tissue in the brain. We want these toxins moving out of the brain into this system here. We need a binder like Cytodetox that has the ability to not just cross into the cell, but also cross into the brain, because that's where the magic is. If I didn't get the toxins out of that pituitary hypothalamus, that center brain, remember I said studies show that's where these heavy metals bioaccumulate. It's that center brain that controls our thyroid and our adrenal glands. That's really how I got well. So that is true detox. Yes, at the cellular level. but more specifically, we have to go to the level deep enough into the brain and deep nerve tissue. This is an epidemic. We're being exposed to so many things like mercury, lead. And let me tell you a little bit about lead, because we all grew up in the lead generation. And it is an epidemic within another epidemic of toxins. The number one source of lead is our parents, our mother in particular. Sorry, moms, but it's true. So when moms get pregnant, most of the lead they've been exposed to from their mother and also other exposures is stored in the bone. And during pregnancy, they start to lose bone. It's normal and natural, but out comes the lead. Where does it go? In utero to the baby. So before life starts, in utero, we are already exposed to a level of toxicity unnatural to the human body, shutting down cellular function. So I always teach something called the bucket theory, right? Basically, we all have a bucket. Genetically, some of us have bigger buckets, some of us have smaller buckets. But the bottom line is, in utero, we start bioaccumulating mom's toxins. Oh, and by the way, there's a study called the Duresh study that shows that number of silver fillings, moms, that you have in your mouth is proportional on autopsies of how much mercury they find in the baby's brain. So yep, your fillings start affecting the baby in utero. All of us, right? Because we're all born. And then your lead comes out that you were exposed to from your mother. I mean, look, lead wasn't even outlawed in most things until 1978. That's when it was taken out of gasoline, paint. But all of our parents had those exposures. And 4 generations, it's estimated to affect. So we get lead. All the vaccinations now that we're getting that have many different toxins, not just mercury, aluminum, etc. And then all of the other exposures from the plastic exposure that we're getting today. I mean, multiple exposures there. I mean, everything we're doing is out of plastic. It has BPA and phthalates, which are all hormone disruptors, right? Our buckets are filling. I can even add stress, emotional stress, because the body doesn't know the difference of toxic stress, emotional stress, or physical stress. Then one day, like me, I got those 2 amalgams out, my bucket overflowed. And that's where the symptoms start. Took me years to bioaccumulate or stockpile those toxins before it started overflowing. Cellular detox, using real binders in the gut, at the cell. I'm going to remind you, I'm going to go back. Real detox is the key. We've got to upregulate the cell function. We've got to get deep enough into the brain, and we've got to make sure it moves all the way out of the body with real binders like cytodetox. Look, I know we've heard of things like chlorella and different herbal binders. They're not real binders. A real binder holds on and it doesn't let go. Those things are called weak binders. And matter of fact, when I was sick and did things like chlorella, cilantro, and I could go down a long list of different herbal binders, things actually got worse. It stirred it up. Or maybe I thought they were getting better, and then all of a sudden redistribution. I was really putting more mercury back into my brain. This is the way it needs to be. You have to use true binders like this to escort them out. Bind has multiple different types of binders in it. And again, it doesn't even actually leave the gut. It just protects the gut. So when we get it to the liver, we want to move it from the liver into the gut. Look, I've been passionate teaching this message. It's what saved my life. I cannot take full responsibility for all this. I learned a lot from a lot of different sources. But I'm going to tell you, look, I believe, and I know this for sure, that God led me to these answers. And now I have the privilege, of educating hundreds of doctors around the world this concept of what I call true cellular detox. I said it really is how I am 51 now. I can tell you this, I feel better and I am healthier now at age 51 than I was even before I got sick. I can assure you of that. It really is about hormone optimization. I'm going to show you one more little thing, as I promised you that I would. Optimizing your hormones has to be at the cellular level. Getting rid of the toxins, the thing that are blunting the hormone receptors, that's a cellular issue. And again, detox at the cellular level is the key. When I teach doctors, I put this whole thing in a context. of a three-legged stool? I know, my art is terrible, right? But if you can imagine that being a three-legged stool, I think we can work together on this. Okay, what is the curse of a three-legged stool? You remember? Take away one leg, it doesn't hold up. Okay, this is an explanation of why people are getting sick today. This is an explanation of the solution as well. When we look at why people aren't performing, when we look at why people really want to get, or why people aren't getting well, this is what's happening. Certain genes are getting turned on. This is called epigenetics, okay? Epigenetics means that a gene gets turned on by a stressor. Look, the old days was we thought we got diabetes or thyroid condition or obesity because our mother or father had it. No, we know it's different now. There's a few diseases that are purely genetic. However, today we know differently. We know that genes get turned on. It's called triggered, or epigenetically gene expression is what it's called, right? So we turn on a gene. Well, if you look, what actually turns on a gene? If you hear that noise in the background, that's my dog actually whining because he wants out of the room. So, you're thinking I'm cruel because I'm not going to stop this video and let him out. He's fine. Trust me, he's fine. All right, there's stressors that turn on the genes. It can be emotional stress, physical stress, or chemical stress. The body doesn't know the difference. Whether you get under these stressors, even pregnancy is a physical, and as I showed you with lead and other toxins that come out during pregnancy, we know that it can turn on those genes. So we know that we have to get rid of the stressors to turn off the genes. A lot of what I teach, the 5 R's of how you fix a cell is really how we get these genes turned off, but ultimately we have to get the toxins out of the cells. Okay, 2 legs of the stools. Genes are getting turned on. That's why we have thyroid conditions exploding, hormone conditions exploding, autoimmune. These genes are being triggered. However, the stressors have to be dealt with. And then this leg of the stool is what we call, well, I'm going to start simple, the gut, or the microbiome. And the microbiome is the good and bad bacteria that make up our gut that we know now is critical for our brains to work, our immune system to work. This is an epidemic of imbalance today. So we know that the disruption of the microbiome is even leading to the genes being turned on as well. We know it's leading to more toxicity. Okay, so this is happening at an epidemic level. All right, so I have to say one more word about this and one more toxin. I talked about the heavy metals, lead, mercury. These are epidemic problems, right? But there's another one today, and it's called glyphosate. It's being sprayed on our food supply. And I'm going to have to let the dog out of the room. So because he is actually, so excuse me. Not even. Okay. I'm back. No whimpering dog to disrupt this message. Glyphosate, it's a chemical that, this is live folks, the chemical that is being sprayed on our food supply. And here's the problem. It's causing a disruption in this microbiome. Stephanie Seneff is the senior scientist at MIT, and she's showing that this is causing leaky gut, yes. Disrupting and causing autoimmune, yes. Being linked to conditions like diabetes, Alzheimer's, and I can go down a laundry list of different conditions. It's also killing off bacteria that we need for this brain to work. There's something called a shikimate pathway. I won't bore you with the science. However, there's these bacteria that we need to make certain amino acids that make neurotransmitters for our brain to work. We have an epidemic of people taking psychotropic drugs, antidepressants, you name it, kids on Adderall, the list goes on and on. But look, when we understand what's happening here, and what's happening here, it gives an explanation to these explosions and these epidemics. Autoimmune, kids today have it. We just don't even have names for most of the autoimmune. By the way, that means your own immune system is attacking itself, driving inflammation. So this is why people are getting sick, but the solution lies here too. So one of the things that I'm teaching is my 5 R's, how to fix the cell to turn off the genes. We're teaching how to get rid of the stressors at the cellular level. And we're also teaching some of these ancient healing strategies of how we fix and what we're doing to fix the gut. So you put it all together, and I call that a multi-therapeutic approach. In this multi-therapeutic approach, the magic is doing all this together. So I show you that just to make it not sound so simple, that, just do this detox and, things are better. That is part of it. True cellular detox, no doubt, is a part of this. But understanding epigenetics and how to turn these genes off while you're removing the stressors is a big part of it. How to fix this gut and microbiome is also a big part of it. You can't just do one of these. We're back to the 3-legged stool analogy, right? All of them have to be there for the solution to hold up. So it's become my passion. I mean, it was learning, and I said my mantra, from pain to purpose. I learned all this the hard way. I learned this by putting these pieces of the puzzle together to get my life back. Now, obviously, I have a passion of sharing it with the world. So honored to be here to teach you. I want to be able to take more questions, answer more questions, and even bring some more information. So I think we're going to obviously have that opportunity on the live webcast that we're doing, live stream. So, make sure you're there, no doubt about it, because I'm sure I started out more questions than I even answered. But what I hope I did is give you hope. I hope I gave you a real solution to maybe why you don't feel well. And again, this is what has enabled me to go beyond even in my athletic performance. My 18-year-old son, who was getting this all set up for me, that didn't come and get the dog out of the room, I'm keeping up, almost keeping up with him. Not on the ski slope anymore, but I have 5 kids that I'm able to keep up with, and go beyond, even at my age. So at 51 years old, I can still ride 50, 100 miles on the bike. I'm still in the gym. I'm still doing everything at the highest level, even when I was in my 20s. It's possible. I believe that, no doubt, that we can do it even 70s, 80s, and beyond. So again, let's go beyond. Hormone optimization. Today, this is the answer. It is hormones. It's getting our cells to hear the hormones. Yes, the answer is cellular detox. Yes, the answer is cellular healing. Putting all of it together in a multi-therapeutic approach. Look, I teach all over the country now. I have webinars. I have a website that I talk a lot about these. So I'm Dr. Pompa. I hope you join us on the live webcast or live broadcast, and I hope this answers a lot of your questions. And most importantly, I hope it gives you hope. So I'll see you there.